In early 2016, Amick Foster Wheeler was tasked by ADECA's Office of Water Resources with conducting a training on FEMA's risk map tools. The training consisted of overviews of both regulatory and non-regulatory risk map products, as well as in-depth looks at changes since last firm, flood depth and analysis grids, flood risk assessment data, and area of mitigation interest data sets. Each dataset training included a general overview and review of the dataset attributes, as well as a hands-on exercise. The following is part 1 of a 4-part training session.
So bringing risk map to Alabama, this is a relatively new aspect in FEMA's flood risk products. Essentially before we had map modernization, where we took all outdated maps from previous studies in the early 2000s and then up through recently, and just update them with regular regulatory products you guys are probably familiar with, like the DFIRM databases, maps, FIS, things of that nature. But now they're adding some supplementary products to go with it as well. And as of right now, just Upper Alabama, Houston County, Upper Choctawhatchee, and Middle Coosa have been completed at this point. So you guys are either lucky or guinea pigs, I guess we could put at this point here. And what exactly is risk map? First of all, with anything with engineering or GIS, they like to have acronyms as many as possible. So the map itself actually stands for Mapping, Assessment, and Planning. And with it, you're going to have the regulatory products you're familiar with, the flood insurance rate maps and database, and the flood insurance studies, but also adding non-regulatory, which don't really require any kind of ordinances or anything for community to have to make laws about or guidances for, and they're strictly for helping mitigation and understanding and assessing risk. And the idea behind risk map as opposed to map modernization is to be a constant circle, as we see here. We start with where we assess the risk, then we map it, we identify the risk, then we map it, then it's assessed. Once it's assessed, we look at possible risk, quantifiable risk reduction, look at future risk, communicate said risk, plan for the risk, then we're going to mitigate the risk, and then once then we transfer that risk, reduce it, and then go back once again, start over with identifying risk. So the whole principle is it's a never-ending cycle of going, instead of making maps and then waiting 30 years to make new maps. We're constantly going. And for this training, we're going to focus mainly on 4 data sets here, being ones that we've identified that you probably can get the most out of in your positions, and what you guys listed as possible goals, probably what you guys need the most to help not only just assess risk for your own self, but also communicate risk in an outreach basis to citizens who may not be as savvy with understanding the nuances of people who deal with flood risk on a day-to-day basis. So the main vision is going to be deliver quality data better than we're able to do before, and that's done through communication. And also want to increase public awareness and reduce risk to life and property. When we do that, it's increased precision of products. Doing that, communicating with communities, counties of that nature. Before, we're at the mercy of whatever large data set we had, national data sets like 10-meter DMs. Now we know a lot of communities have their own LIDAR. And communicating with them, it's not that communities don't want to give it to these studies, but it's the fact that sometimes during the study they don't realize the new data is out there. So that kind of communication helps. Making sure risk assessments are done, mitigation plans are up to date with the new maps, and engaging communities to help communicate risk effectively. And this is really going to emphasize project prioritization. If you have a certain area that you guys around the place every day in your communities, you know when it floods, what floods. We have these models that are made, but models aren't perfect. They're the best we can do with the data we have, but still, you guys know the area more and say, hey, this stream right here, I really don't think it should be an approximate study, maybe it should be a detailed study. And then you can communicate that to ADECA, and they can put that on for thing you've done. Elevation data acquisition. We can be like, hey, this data is a decade old, LIDAR, things have changed, things this area. Communicate that. Also, the new thing you might see is now it's a watershed approach, as opposed to before it was a county approach. And we prefer the watershed approach because it's not natural. Community boundaries aren't really formed naturally. So you do large streams like Coosa River, Alabama River, and it would be almost impossible to get them to edge match or do those. Also engineering and mapping and mitigating support. Risk map products, we talked regulatory, so we know we have the DFIRM database, the flood insurance study, and these all are statutory due process requirements. And the non-reg, we have the flood risk report, which is kind of analog to the FIS. We have the flood risk database, which is kind of analog to the DFIRM database with different stuff. And then the flood risk map. But the difference here is the flood risk map is just one giant overview, as opposed to the DFIRM maps. You might have anywhere from 30 to over 100 in your community. And these are not subject to statutory due process requirements, but they are reviewed by FEMA. And these are turned in at prelim, essentially. So there might be changes based on appeals and things of that nature that will not be reflected in these risk map products. Or the non-regulatory products as well, excuse me. Flood risk report. This is just going to introduce the idea of flood risk, its analysis, things like changes since the last firm, which is something I know a lot of the floodplain administrators are very interested in, knowing what's changed since the last firm so they can communicate outreach. We'll have a giant section about that. Flood depth and analysis grids. You're not just saying it floods in this area, but this is how bad the flooding will be in this area. Estimated loss information, something we haven't done in the past in a in or out regulatory system we had. This actually gives an actual dollar amount, which helps raise people, decision makers in your community who can get behind and actually push things. And then areas of mitigation interest, which helps you identify areas negative and positive impacts that can control and affect flooding. And it gives an overview of communities and actions to help reduce flood risk. Here's a sample of one of the community overviews. And here we just have City of Gadsden. It gives an idea of like total population, percent population watershed, because as I said, the watershed might cut off certain areas and not all the population will be affected by this report. Change this last firm, we'll talk about square miles, areas added, areas taken away, net change, because when flood map's not out, it's not always expanding flood zones. There are being some areas that are actually being reduced by better LIDAR. And also areas of mitigation success. And we also have tables here that give a dollar value amount here. And it's by recurrence interval here. So you can see total inventory at risk, and then your percent annual chance flood, and the amount of dollar loss based upon residential, commercial, and other buildings. We'll get into that more. We have a section on that later. And then we have the areas of mitigation interest I told you, where it will actually refer to the different, we call them AOMIs, because once again, we love acronyms here in this business. And I'll tell you the different types we have. And here's a flood risk map. As I said before, it's not going to be the mapping itself, along with everything else in every real paper products are kind of going the way of the dodo, and everything's going to be more database driven with these new products. But this right here does give kind of call out areas. It focuses potential losses, breakdown by communities, and also areas of mitigation interest are really reflected in this map. And here's the flood risk database to give you an idea of how complicated this is right here. You see this chart? This is a flow chart here that to make this database, we're supposed to have everything relate back to each other. We don't expect you guys to understand that at all. It's complicated. You'd have to take a course on it to understand every aspect of it. We will help reduce this down to what you guys will need in your job on a daily basis, or not daily basis, but when the time arises to get the most out of these products. And we'll give you our information. If you guys have questions about other stuff in the database, we can help you from there. Getting with some of the actual layers itself here. Inside the database, you'll see this S_carto_area, cartographic areas, cartographic lines. And these are kind of ancillary layers that, for the cartographic areas, it gives kind of like background material, like county boundaries, things of that nature. Certain areas of mitigation interest, if they're larger, they can use these layer to reflect that. Then we have the cartographic lines that primarily at streams and important transportation features, but also can be used to express AOMIs in more detail as well if that's available. Okay, now I got the census block area here. This is going to be the smallest layer that we break it down here for flood analysis. And all of this is contained within that information. We're actually going to open up here in ArcMap here in just a second. And this can actually be linked to several different tables we'll go over in section 3 to help you reflect actual dollar amount loss. And if you'll open up an MXD real quick. And if you need help with anything, Kelly, raise your hand, Kelly will come help you here. And we're going to go to add data, and Kelly should have it pointed to where the database is. If not, just let us know and Kelly help you find it. And we'll go inside the spatial layers in that data set. Is everybody at this point so far? I'll give everybody a few minutes here, a few seconds. Once we're in there, we'll go inside the FRD spatial layers. Just double click that. And from there, just get the census block area as right there. And just go ahead and add it when you get a chance. Everybody got that? Anybody still waiting? Got it? All right. One thing you'll notice here is that unlike the DFIRM database, this is not in UTM zone north 16. This is in decimal degrees. So something to keep in mind there in case you work with different projections. And you'll see census blocks. Those familiar with those vary in size greatly depending on the area you're in. What you have right here along the Coosa, the cities here, you have much smaller blocks. And let's open up the attribute table here. Right click on it, open attribute table. And within it here, we'll have the census block ID. That's going to be what we use to link to different tables. It'll be the primary one-to-one connection there. We have the population within each census block, which can vary from 0 in this watershed to, wow, heck of a census block right there. Also have the ARV here. It's going to stand for asset replacement value. We have that for buildings total. ARV, asset replacement value, for the contents total. And then we have that broken down between residential building contents, and then for commercial building and contents, and then other. And other will be industrial, agricultural, educational buildings, things of that nature. And this last stuff here is just the HUC code, case number. Nothing really that's more for FEMA processing purposes more than anything that you'll use it for. Okay. And we'll revisit this for a later exercise coming on. Just want you to be familiar with some of the attributes and the layer as a whole. One of our next big layers here is going to be the FRD POL_AR, political area, flood risk data set, political area. And it's going to be a combination of all of the political areas from the DFIRM databases, but it's going to be clipped to the watershed. So as I know, most of you are used to just pulling in your community or county, might get a little thrown off, especially if you're in one of these communities that's cut off by the watershed here. The key attributes in here, political name, it's going to be the primary name of the community, percent population. So once again, if you're cut in half, you might be 100%, might be 30%, depending on how much of your community is cut off by the watershed. Also percent land area, so gives you exactly how much percentage of the land of your community, same idea as the population. NFIP status, I'm 99% sure that everybody in the middle Coosa is participating, so it'll be true, participating in this. Also has past number of federal flood emergency declarations and number of flood insurance policies within the community, as well as the dollar amount for those. It also contains hazard mitigation plans for each community and when it expires. Let's go ahead and bring that in to ArcMap as well. Turn this off. Go to add data. Add this in here. Kind of zoom later there, you get an idea where community. We got DeKalb County up there. We got Talladega down here. And we got even a little bit of Shelby County down here, to give you an idea of the extent of this watershed. I think, is this Blount over here? Yeah, a little bit of Blount County as well there in the west. And we'll open up, look at these attributes. And with the DFIRM for the, that's based on county, it's DFIRM ID. The community identification number, 6-digit community identification number. Political name, sort it that way. County FIPS. And here we have information, population, total population, percent population, land area, square miles, percentage, NFIP status. Even has a CRS rating here based on community. Here's the past declarations, flood policies, and then the coverage.
Was everybody able to find this layer?
And then here we have the hazard mitigation plan name along with its expiration date. And once again, with this data you have, you can update it with your new ones if you have it, because I also see here this data is, where some of these have already expired. You're pretty sure you probably have new hazard mitigation plans.
How far back does it go from past declarations?
From when it was revealed at prelim date, it goes back to then. You have questions about this layer before we move on to the next one? All right. All right, next layer might be one you might be a little less familiar with here, is the S_UDF_PT. UDF stands for User Defined Facilities, and this helps with the assessment part here. What we have here is these little point files we have for each structure on a parcel inside the floodplain. All the ones in those get taken and put into HAZUS. We'll go over that later. It's a software used to deduce actual monetary loss. And to get this, we go through, look at the areas, determine its occupancy type, whether it be residential, commercial, industrial, school, and it all has different coded values that need to be formatted for HAZUS to go in there to get this value. Facility type, and also we get from the communities, some of you might have had us contact you before, and it sounds kind of fishy. We're like, hey, can we please get the real dollar value amounts for part? We've had some communities, kind of push back at that, not want to get the information, but it does help give the communities itself a better product in knowing the actual dollar values instead of having to use HAZUS default values. As we know, houses do not cost the same, buildings do not cost the same to replace across the United States, or even within the same region. So we know a house maybe possibly in Talladega County is probably not going to be average residential house in Talladega County. It's not going to cost the same as an average residential house in Shelby or Jefferson County, and things of that nature. Let's go ahead and bring that in to ArcMap as well. Add data. Underscore S_UDF point. Make sure you have the S_UDF point. Everybody got it? Good. All right. Bring this in, you'll see all these dots here. They're going to actually reflect also what the floodplains are going to look like as well. You notice there's some, we don't have some of these here in DeKalb or Shelby. These are areas that didn't have new studies done. They're not ones that were used for a level 2 analysis, so that's why you don't see them in there. So just kind of closer look there. We'll open the attributes here. Here you see the census block ID, so it's linked to which census block it goes to. Occupation type, we have from single family dwelling, mobile homes, business, professional, technical services. And this goes all the way down, go down, look for some other places we have here. Obviously single family dwelling is going to be the most popular one. We also have general services, retail, wholesale, things of that nature. And then we have the ARV, asset replacement value for the building, and that's in thousands of dollars, so that's 285,000 right there for this house. Contents 29,000. This is based primarily from the tax assessor values. And you see there's nothing linking anybody to actual owner in this data, so there's no privacy issues with that. And all this data is, as far as parcel stuff, is for the most part publicly accessible data. Anybody have any questions in particular about the UDF points?
How are you guys collecting that? From
Collecting
the
them
county assessors?
from the county assessors. Sometimes we have to go through multiple organizations where we'll talk to the city and they're like, well, we have this, but we have to have the county's permission to turn over, things of that nature. Obviously, more rural areas, it's a little tougher to get. They don't have as much of GIS resources. But luckily, it's a lot easier now than it was 5 years ago to get stuff like this, so that's the good
Is this
news.
something that, you know, with everything going digital and with us logging in, is there a routine for keeping that up to date? Or-
There's not really one for right now for keeping. We have a system to make it easier. Once again, like every process, the evolution of UDF points has come easier. When first we had building footprints as well to go with them, and what we did before, I guess when we started this several years ago, building footprints were not quite as ubiquitous as they are now for most communities. And now we're able to just essentially clip it within the actual floodplain itself and create a point that actually puts it on the water value. Uh-oh. I'm going to keep, and don't show this again. Yeah, as far as upkeep, that's usually communities now. We're doing Mobile County's one we're interacting with now. And they're like, oh, we have 2015 data. You want that? Like, yes, we'd love that. It's great to have a communication up, to be able to get new data as it comes out during the actual process. So, any other questions about the UDF points? All right, other spatial layers, we're not going to bother bringing these in. These are kind of very, very rudimentary, supplementary areas. The HUC area, which is going to be the watershed. Project area, which is basically going to be the watershed basin again, unless it's a special case. And then we have call-out lines, which essentially are just if you're trying to replicate the flood risk map. Brings us to our first data set, which we'll have a fun exercise to do after this. It's good to actually get nitty-gritty, solve some problems here. And we're doing the changes to this last firm, which I assume is probably the most popular we have with this data set, or the ones you guys are most interested in. Benefits of this is, once again, people are at new flood maps come out. The first question you guys want to know is, where is it increasing? You know, who do I need to reach about this? Why is it increasing? And this layer is very complex because it does answer almost all these questions for the most part. It lets you know what a zone is changing from to. Also lets you know about floodway changing to from. This is really great mitigation. It lets you get a quantitative number with those UDF points, or you can use it with your own data. If you have your own parcel data, you can use it with that. And it lets you do NGIS and different queries to get actual number of households affected by the changes in the maps. And with this, it helps you identify prioritizing projects or even outreach things to let certain people know that they're at risk, or even developers that are in certain areas. 10 users, planners, community officials, leaders, you guys obviously, even insurance agents, realtors, and private citizens. Key attributes for this, it's going to be pre-zone and new zone, which makes sense. Pre-zone, previous zone, new zone will be new zone. Those are two separate attributes. Then we have pre-zone ST stands for subtype. Pre-zone subtype, that means like basically essentially floodway, not floodway. And then new zone subtype, which essentially will just be floodway. We also have SFHA, CHG, which stands for Special Flood Hazard Area Change, and that has values of either increase, none, or decrease. And then we have non-SFHA change, which is basically the non-special flood, basically the reverse of what we just did with special flood hazard change. And then we have flowway change. If that's something that's very vital, you're really focused on that, that's something you can just bring in and symbolize with that. We're going to bring it in here in just a second. I just want to show you how overly complicated some of this visualization can be. With all that information, I'll show you guys, go through some little queries here and symbolization options. just show you what, depending on what you want to show, what's the best way to do it, because there's a certain way you can show almost too much information. If you have 3 different things in the legend, people are going to get lost. There's only so many shades of purple and green and blue and things of that nature you can show, and people will still be able to detect. So let's go ahead and let's bring that layer in real quick. Oops. I'll turn off these right here. Go to add data. It's going to be S_CSLF underscore area. Everybody got that? All good? All right. Here we go. Let's just look at the attributes real quick, and then I'll show you a little demonstration about the symbology here. Unique identifier, the area. We're focused on these major ones right here. The previous zone, so this right here used to be a 0.2. Zone subtype for 500-year floodway. The previous topography, this will give you a hint on what it was done before, and the vast majority of these will probably be done in 10-meter DM, and you get a big difference in the floodplain you're going to get when you model flows on you're taking 1 point for 10 meters by 10 meters as opposed to 1 point for 2 feet by 2 feet. The new zone used in subtype. If it has a blank, it means it's zone X, unshaded zone X, so it's not in the flood zone. And they'll have areas here, peak discharge, if it's decreasing, increasing, negligible, same. Model methods, if they've changed or not, true for yes, no for they haven't. Flood control change, that's if a dam or levee has been removed that might cause difference. Hydraulic structure change, if a bridge has been, if there's due to new bridges or widened culverts, something like that, if there's been an increase or decrease. Topology change, this is the big one, especially for most new studies going on, especially with Middle Coosa. And they have other varying ones, sediment, erosion, channel changes, levee, runoff changes, dunes. If you see someone with a dune problem, you have an issue. There shouldn't be any dunes here in Middle Coosa or anywhere except for Baldwin or Mobile. And then we have the other major ones here, the SFHA change, flowway change, and the non-special flows area change. All right. Now I'm going to cheat here and go to a bookmark area I have already picked out here, if you guys will just watch along for this one. So we have this area here, Calhoun County near Alexandria Creek and Battle Creek. I'm going to play around with the attributes here. I'll go to symbology. I'll go to categories. And if we can just show one, if we just show one, you basically are just essentially either replicating old flood maps or new flood maps. You really want to use multiple. Before I do that, let me just show you. This still can show information itself, but you're not really able to convey much information easily. And I don't think anybody would sit around all day and just hit identify and check each area and try to remember which area it is. Maybe if you're using a very small area to get an idea, you don't have to worry about symbology, but for the most part, you're going to want to change the symbology here. So categories, I'm going to do unique values mini fields. And as we talked about, one big area that I think affects all of us here in this room is going to be what was the previous zone and what's the new zone. And what I'd also recommend putting in there would be floodway change in case you're worried about floodways at all as well. So that way you're not getting too many features in there, but at the same time. Well, first let's try with just these two first, just previous zone and new zone. Sorry about that. We'll go to the next one after that. We're going to add all values. Might take a few seconds here to go through. So we have all the varying values here. Hit OK. And now we get more of a picture painted here. So we go through here and just,
That's Joey's Road right there.
so we identify here. We have an area that used to be nothing. If we look at the previous zone here. And now it is a zone A. So essentially it's a non-existing, looks like a new stream that was modeled with a new study that was not previously done. On this side here in the purple, let's click that. And we have something that was previously nothing, but now AE. So that's an area that you probably want to get out and do outreach for and let these people know immediately if there's people in the area. And you see, even with just these two unique values, we still have quite a few. Some of these won't be as dominant as others. The AO zones are very rare. You'll see very few of them. You also can go in here and look and see what we have here right there in the middle, see what's going on. So essentially this stream right here, I believe it's Battle Creek here, or Alexandria, used to be Zone A, and it was done on 10 meter, and now it's an AE with a floodway. So we've now taken an approximate study and now made a detailed with a floodway. So that's going to make a major change. And you can see this blue area here was in the flood zone, this light blue still in the flood zone, and this purple is going to be areas that's now newly in. So this is the area you can focus on. Just from just one simple or two simple categories in that, you're able to paint a picture here for what exactly is going on. Even up here, you see this area here that this blue is what it was a zone A, and this purple now being what's going to be now a detailed state that was previously not even in the flood zone at all. So just through that quick visualization, you're able to get so much more out of it so quickly. And then we even can add, and I'll just about to show you now, I guess, the idea of diminishing returns, where we have that many different values, and we now can add the value fields floodway change to add all values. Some slightly different colors. But you see the number of actual fields here has gone up so dramatically you might not be able to get to parse the information you need, especially trying to visually communicate something to somebody. But once again, if you're with a more savvy audience who knows what's going on, if you're talking to other colleagues, you might prefer this many different value fields for your symbology. And this goes really well with your parcel data or even UDF points, where you can kind of look through, see from areas like this area right here we talked about being, it was nothing. It was Zone X, unshaded Zone X, not in the flood zone at all. And now you have all these houses here, they're now in a flood zone. So that's an area you'd probably go out and say, hey, this is what's going on. You guys need to get ahead of the ball, get flood insurance, or if you are confident you guys aren't in, work on some kind of appeals process. And we have other houses here along as well. Like this right here is a house who probably, when they bought it, was like, oh, well, the flood zone's right there. We're good by about 30 feet, 50 feet, and that's not going to happen. It's never flooded here before. And now, boom, they're not just in it, they're kind of smack dab in it. Play around with the...
If you want their addresses, we'll give you their addresses.
That's a... is that your department, Leslie? Getting the addresses, going to door to door for them? Let them know? No. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint just for 1 second. Another great way to use them is using definition queries. I know some people like them, don't like them. There's ways around them if you prefer. And what trainings I've done, I usually like to focus on them. They're kind of an easy way, especially with GIS savvy groups, to use it. And this is a great way to single out what you're looking for. If you want to single out just areas that are increasing, you don't have to worry about a large data set and different symbology. You simply can just get areas that are increasing area or areas that are decreasing. Just a simple symbology. And you can use that with a definition query. You can bring those UDF points, bring that layer in, have your change this last firm in with just increasing areas turned on definition query. Just do a simple select by location and get an actual number of how many UDF points are being affected. And you can run a join with your parcel data if you have parcel data to get addresses and data on that mailer information. So let's try an example of that real quick. So goodbye pretty symbology. Let's go back to just a single here. And yeah, feel free to go ahead and try this one with me if you have the layer out. Just go to properties, symbology, do single symbol, definition query. Everybody there? If you're already familiar with how to use it, then don't feel like you need to wait for me. Just trying to make sure everybody gets here. And we're gonna go down here to special flood hazard change equals, let's get unique values here. Just to make sure we get in there. I'll do the I. And now this gives you just the areas that are increasing. You can just do a select by location. Select features here from UDF that intersect, that changes its last firm. I'll let everybody catch up here for a second. All right, guys, we'll hit OK. Get this calculation if you haven't already. And so if you did it throughout the entire watershed, you'd have 2,639 being added. And you, of course, can isolate that for your per community you decide to focus on. And adversely, we can also change that up and change that. Oops. We can change that definition query from increase to decrease.
So then go back in where you were and I'll show the areas that are decreasing. And really,
You can see the areas are being taken out of the flood zone. And you can do a select by location the exact same way for you get points to see how many are taken out.
Versus if you didn't know that was supposed to be. You can do that.
Anybody have any questions about the concept behind this so far, or any kind of application of it?
Like if you didn't know it was supposed to be.
We're good? Everybody ready to do an exercise with it? Feel good about it? All right. How are we feeling? Doing good over there, Kelly?
I think
We're good? All right, now it's time to put in the test. We got an exercise for him. All right.
You had a question.
Got a question?
As far as
Yes.
the house points or
Yes.
the structure points,
Yes.
were those based on what data set?
If footprint data was available, we took the footprint of it. We obviously verified it, spot checked with aerials, make sure they matched that before we just did that. And then we would take a centroid point and move it to the far end in the floodplain. So the point that's first in the floodplain would get the dot on it. We're not just taking the middle and just leaving it in the middle. Yes, sir.
How often would this be updated, or is that?
The change this last firm will be every time new flood maps come out. So every time a watershed study is done is when new changes this last firm will be updated. But once again, this is stuff, this change this last firm won't be changing, but you yourself might have footprint data that's constantly changing before, and you can use your footprint data in there the same way you're using UDF and use that instead if you want. Completely interchangeable, what you want to check, what's in and out with. Change last firm, once again, not gonna be updated, but you have your own. Once again, can be used with this data, and I think the best part is the fact it can be used with your data that's dynamic and changing constantly, to where you don't have to wait every 5-6 years to get these new products. You can still use the change last firm and use it with your data as it changes, especially. All right.
If we have data that we could contribute to this, I mean.
At this point, this is already past the FEMA thing, but once again, any data you have, like you add to this all you want, and you can hand it. I'm pretty sure we're willing to incorporate in your stuff, and we can have it for next time as well. Like if you have certain things that are done in case like any kind of project stuff, like
Cause I mean, I got entire building address points for every
Building address
structure in
points?
McCall
Okay.
County.
Yeah, the address points, that's something we could add on, like, at the prelim stage, next time or before prelim, at the beginning of the community meetings, when new stages are being done. That's something great, something we can do before, like when prelim goes out, let these people know and send mailers out, let them know what's going on.
Yeah, the purpose is, for this data is, this is what FEMA required. And the purpose is for you to take the data and incorporate it into your additional data. FEMA will not maintain data on, with addresses and stuff like that in it. We kind of joke about it, but they don't want to do it. They don't want to share that. But for you to do it, yes, that's what they want you to do.
Yeah.
Is take this data and apply it more.
All right. Let's everybody seems so comfortable with that. Let's go to our first data exercise. Try your community or the community of your choice if there's not UDF points in it. Answer these questions. We'll give you guys about 10 minutes or so. If you have questions, please raise your hand. Myself or Kelly will come by and help you. And after we're done with this exercise, I'll run through an example with the city of Anniston, in case, just to give a way to do it there. For my example, I'm gonna go over the city of Anniston to get the net how many are added, how many are taken out answer. And so first I'm gonna set to how many are added. So change this last firm, change that SFHA change to I. Hit OK. You can do this a couple of different ways depending on how you want to do it on select by locations here. I'm just going to go ahead and select by location UDF points in my change this last firm layer. But we're not worried about entire county-wide being added. We want just one community, just City of Anniston. So we can just open up this attribute here. Sort by the political name here. City of Anniston, click that. So that's selected. Now we're going to select by location again. This time making sure selection method should not be select features from, but select from the currently selected features in. We're going to keep UDF on. And this time our source layer is going to be that political area. And making sure that use selected features is toggled. Hit OK. $292, those are newly added. Now we can do the exact same thing to see how many were taken away. So we write down 292. We'll clear these. Select by location. We'll do select features from because we're starting a new query here. In political area, make sure that's toggled. Use selected features is toggled on. Hit OK. Now we want to change this last firm from increase to decrease, so we do a definition query. Select by location again. This time, since we have a selection set, we're going to do a sub-selection with select from the currently selected features in UDF. And we're changes its last firm. Hit OK. And we have 92 being taken out. So we said 292, so 200 net for C. of Anniston being added. All right. Anybody have any questions about the exercise? No? All right. Let's take a quick 5-minute break here. We have some waters outside if you'd like some, and a restroom's right there. If you have any other questions on the side you want to ask myself or Kelly, just let us know.